Welcome to the first episode of the Struggle Leader podcast. And today we are in for a treat. I am hanging out with amazing respiratory therapists, and they are educators. I mean, they're doing the Lord's work because some stuff I can't do. So about myself, I'm Hans Regis, a respiratory therapist. I've been in this field for about 15 years. I've worked in almost every area of respiratory except education because y'all doing the Lord's work. So whatever y'all doing, I can do. And I really value educators. So in this first segment, we're going to talk about then, now, and tomorrow. CNT. And like that, I'm calling like that. I begin with weird acronyms. Those who have worked with me in the past or they know I'll be coming up with stuff. So TNC. Back then, how is it now? And what we're looking for tomorrow, we're going to have two aspects of this conversation. We're going to talk about the student life, and we're going to talk about after they make it to this difficult program. God forbid, I was on probation, so I know it's a difficult program. Yeah, yeah. I struggle, but hey, God see me through. I'm here now. We made it, and then we talk about at the bedside education for respiratory. But before, I'm gonna let you all introduce yourself. Not everybody jump out one.
I'll go first.
There you go.
My name is Jocelyn Law. I am a respiratory therapist. I have been a respiratory therapist for 26 years. I am a native of Atlanta, which is rare to actually be from here. But I was born and raised here, and I graduated from college and came back home to work at a local hospital here in the metro Atlanta area where I worked for 17 years. I like to say I was a baby therapist, so I did everything. I started out as a bedside therapist, then I moved on to a lead therapist. Then I became the blood gas lab supervisor. Then I became the clinical supervisor on day shift,
Okay.
became a manager during my tenure there, and then transitioned to another hospital after about 17 years there. And then I went to a pediatric hospital. So now I am there. I was a bedside therapist there as well, primarily working in the NICU. I got the pleasure of being on NICU transport, so I have that experience. And then I became a clinical educator because along my respiratory journey, I got interested into education probably about 17 years ago, where I joined the faculty for one of the colleges here in the metro area where I got to teach respiratory therapy. And I'm still on faculty. So I've always had a desire and a passion for education. And I love my profession of respiratory. So to me, clinical educator just meshes those two worlds together. And it's my favorite. So that's a little bit about my journey. Now I get to support clinical educators throughout the system at a hospital here in Atlanta. So I get a little bit of the management part of it, but then the majority of it is spent making sure we have great educational programs for the bedside respiratory therapists, as well as those new therapists that are coming into our system. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool.
I'll go next. My name is Larissa Frederick. I've been a therapist for 19 years. Fun fact about me, I was one of Jocelyn's baby students. Um, I was so scared of her because I accidentally took her pen and she hunted me down for this pen. Okay.
Oh my God.
And at an area hospital here in Atlanta where I worked. I started there as a student tech and I worked my way up. I was a baby therapist there. Tech to clinician, ICU clinician to NICU clinical supervisor. And that's what I did for my tenure there. And while I was there about 10 years, I decided to leave to go back to school. And I got a double master's. So I got a master's in respiratory therapy and health informatics because at the time, I thought that I wanted to segue into health informatics. But during my time working on my master's degree, they started talking to me more and more about education. And then it was something that I was already doing working as a clinical supervisor. And so I ran with that. So currently I'm on faculty at a respiratory therapy program here in Atlanta. I'm a clinical assistant professor and the director of clinical education there. And that's where I've spent my time. It's been 8, 9 years now. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm also back in school working on my doctorate degree.
Okay.
All
I've
right.
been doing that. This is nothing new. I'm just crying because it's still an ongoing process.
Adulting, they say. Trivis.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. So my name is Patrivis Ellison. I go by Trevis, and I am a respiratory therapist too. Of course, I've been in respiratory for 20 years now, and I just feel so blessed because sometimes you can experience a career change because you're trying to find the right fit for you, and I got it right the first time. So
Go.
um, and just
What do
getting
the
to
kids do?
realize.
This, something.
Yeah.
Here
I
you
got
go.
it
This way,
right the
this way,
first
this way.
time.
Okay.
There were a lot of things I didn't get right the first time in life, but choosing my profession as a respiratory therapist, I did. And I've worked in all aspects of respiratory care from, all adult critical care, the NICU, LTAC, even did some marketing as a clinical liaison, rehab, NICU flight team, you name it. I've done it just in a few states that I've worked in, and just about every hospital in the Atlanta market, working, like as a traveler. And then, so most recently, for the last a year and 8, 9 months, I've been in a respiratory clinical educator role here in the Metro Atlanta area. And this is when I knew coming into this role, I was like, oh, yeah, this is it. This is it for me. So I'm really passionate about it.
You said what?
As Jocelyn mentioned, because when you've done education and like naturally, like I've taught as an adjunct staff therapist, an adjunct instructor, and as a clinical preceptor at the bedside, I've been teaching all along. So now it's just a better platform for me to actually be able to have direct impact on the new grads and the therapists, and just reminding educators overall, like, it's how we teach that matters just as much as what we teach. So
Absolutely.
that's a bit about me.
All right. Good. So we established this. We all have what it takes to have this conversation. Then, now, tomorrow, respiratory education, student edition, right? We've all been in the field for a moment, and all of us actually have access or can impact respiratory education at the student level and also at the clinician level. So let's talk about it on a student level. So, first question, we're going to talk about the then part. So, what is one teaching approach you used in your early phase that was successful that is missing today?
Ooh, that's missing today.
That is missing today. What is one respiratory educational approach that we've done back then that was successful that is missing today?
Think I don't know if this is like a great thing or not, but like how Larissa mentioned, that she was afraid of Jocelyn.
That fear.
I was afraid of my instructor. In my director of clinical education when I was a student.
Mhm.
I knew I had to be on time. Like I was there early. I had everything, like my scrubs were ironed, they were crisp. I had my pen, my stethoscope, all of the things, my notepad. I did not want to. I was so afraid that all of my hard work would go to waste, by me not being professional and meeting the expectations. And I see some of that is missing now. These students ain't scared of nothing. They don't
Mm-mm.
care.
Mm-mm.
Some of them,
Yeah.
not all of them. But
Yeah.
I've run across a lot that it's just no fear. It's just like, I mean, well, I'm here or I just came, like, so that fear and lack of kind of like accountability that
Mhm.
I feel like is missing from some people. Not all, but
It's that lack of respect.
that too.
I remember walking into the hospital and seeing the clinical educator at the time, rest in peace. And I used to turn and go the other way because I was like, oh, this man's about to ask me a million questions, have me shaking in my boots. But I learned
Yeah.
so much from him.
Yeah.
And I feel like they don't want to put in that level of work. They just want to be
That
there.
they don't want to put in the work.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of afraid, but I think our instructors set a level of expectation that we
Absolutely.
felt like we had to meet or
Hmm.
exceed. I think for and I know for the three of us, we've come from different backgrounds and
Mm-hmm.
integrated into different types of schools of academics. And so I attended a historically Black college, and my instructor, she looked just like I did. So her level of
Hmm.
expectation to me, for me, was so much higher. And I think today, a lot of students, they just, I find myself having to repeat things over and over.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be able to set a level of expectation and they meet it. And when they can't, fostering that understanding, we can have a conversation. Whereas before, there were no conversations if you did not meet those expectations. You just had
Correct.
this desire to not want to disappoint. And so today, that's just sometimes missing. So I wouldn't say fear; it was more of a level of expectation.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think that's generational,
Hmm.
this current generation. I think that's one of the growing pains or us dealing with people who are not of the same generation, how to deal with them, to get them to that level. I find myself banging my head against the wall all the time, making phone calls. Jocelyn, I called you earlier this week, um, just to try to get them there. But part of it is you can't want it more than they do.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of them, I find myself having to ask them, well, why are you here? What drives you? Because I'm not seeing the drive.
Yeah, those motivators, I
Hmm.
think it's important to find out, whether it's intrinsic, extrinsic, what motivates them.
Hmm.
And that can kind of help us connect when I ask why, other than money. Like, why are you doing this other than money?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hear
Hmm.
the most. And I'm like, that's not going to sustain you. I promise. It's not.
Yeah,
No, no.
you're right.
Yeah.
So going back to the same thing, we're still in the then part back then. Do we think that the didactic or clinical portion back then were stronger or prepared clinician better for the workplace? Like we still like just to be very transparent. Um, I got on probation. I did fail. Um, hopefully he's gonna watch this one day. Um, I did have one of my classes in respiratory kick my behind a few times, so I ended up getting on probation. I think there's a level, and I think going back to the old versus new. Do we feel that the old system of education, when how did we teach, how did we pour into the student?
Hmm.
Back then versus now, do we feel that curriculums were stronger? Do we feel like back then we had a better system to get clinician ready for the real world, or we are seeing? Talk to me. How was it back then? Because all of us have years of experience. Do we think now we had a better educational component to get us there, or versus what we are seeing now?
I think COVID has done us a disservice in a lot of ways because people have left the field, people with a lot of great experience and knowledge, and it's overly saturated with travelers who don't really care about educating the students in the area that they are in, and young therapists who don't really, they don't know themselves. And so we're sending these students out and they're placed with people who don't know what they're doing themselves. So there's not much forward progress, and then you have those that did go through COVID and they're burned out. I know some great therapists that are
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to teach, I don't want to do anything, don't put a student with me because I'm tired. And it's sad because they have so much knowledge that they could share and impart on these younger kids, and they don't want to. And part of it is because they're burned out, and the other part is because of the entitlement that they see from some of the students. It's a turnoff for them. So I think we had it better, or I know I did, because I essentially did all my clinicals in the same place. There were tons of great seasons there. There was a wealth of knowledge that I can go to anyone and find the answer. And I'm not seeing that everywhere anymore. So
Mm.
I think the didactic piece, honestly, I think it hadn't really changed. We still have to know the
Mm-mm.
same information to
Mm-hmm.
pass the test. I think going back to what Larissa said, seeing the seasoned therapist, I think I learned back then how to be a therapist by watching them. You know,
Yep.
they demonstrated a level of professionalism that I knew that that's what I was supposed to do once I graduated. And I think for a lot of our students, they don't get to see that part of the professionalism piece
Mm-hmm.
when they're on their clinical rotations. Like Larissa said, it is saturated. We do have travelers, or we do have younger therapists that um, haven't seen the model of professionalism either, because
Mm-hmm.
our more seasoned therapists are either in leadership, they're not really all at the bedside anymore, or retiring. A lot of them are starting to retire out of the profession, and I think that's the part that we may miss with our students. I think the didactic piece
Mm-hmm.
is still going to be the same, but teaching
Yeah.
them that level of professionalism, which was what I learned in school, I think that's missing for our students.
I think trying to connect, exactly what you're saying, Jocelyn, because when I started teaching, I would look back because I went through the same I'm teaching, I should say, in the same program that I graduated from, and it's taught the exact same way. And, it's a different type of student nowadays. And so that's one of the things that on my PhD course is trying to figure out how to connect with them without sacrificing the rigor, because a lot of other things, schools, they do games and all of this stuff to try to get them involved. This isn't fun and games what what we're doing. So I'm not going to sit here and play games and hand out prizes, because to me that's going to take away from the seriousness of what we're saving lives. So um yeah, it's we have a different type of student with the same curriculum. So how do we connect the two?
And
That's
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 a
my
great
struggle.
question. And I
Mhm.
think it's the same information, but as I mentioned earlier, is how you present that information. I
Mhm.
think that's making a difference. Like times change, people change, of course. So we have a different generation now. So we as educators have to adapt as well.
Mhm.
Um, when I was in school, like doing clinicals, I had a clinical preceptor, and I was a clinical preceptor. So I had someone there who could answer the questions and help me to connect the dots. And I think now in the hospitals, we're expecting when students come in there doing the clinicals, we're expecting the therapist to do that teaching and help them connect the dots, and it doesn't translate as well because they aren't in the education, type field. They may not know how to give that information. There was a class I took at Boise State when I was getting my bachelor's, and it was called How to Teach Healthcare Professionals. And I got the book and I kept it and I keep rereading different parts of it because it helped me to understand the different ways that people learn and how, my own biases and how I teach and making sure that information I'm giving is actually what the student is receiving. So I think there could be there's an opportunity for us to either have more clinical preceptors in the hospital to help them answer questions, or we have to teach our therapists ways to, or preceptors ways to teach the students as well. And that's adapting with the change.
That is a great way to segue to my next question, right? So I remember when I was doing clinical a long time ago, if I was in the ICU, the expectation from school that I was supposed to review my disease processes before I go to clinicals. So I was really reviewing ARDS, pulmonary, like every major adult disease processes that are very common. I had to review their signs and symptoms. I had to review treatment plan. I have to review basic mechanical ventilation before I go to clinical. And then when I get there, so I need to be able to speak up to that. So the next question is, where is the gap? Because we notice there is a gap. No matter how we say it, there is a gap from you all educators pouring into the students. That's why you guys are doing the Lord's work. And there is a gap between what is being poured into the student and when they transition into clinicals, and there is another gap, like we just mentioned, as far as how we are teaching them at the bedside. So where is the gap? Is it coming from the student? Is it coming from how we are delivering the message? Where is the gap?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it would help, like, if, say, the hospital-based educators were more aligned with what they're teaching in schools, like as far as the information, because, for example, I may have some first year students that may come into the hospital and are getting ready to do clinicals, and they haven't had the pharmacology course yet. But then, they're expected to go out and be able to give treatments to therapists, to patients, and educate the patient on like what they're giving the medication for and things like that. But they haven't had the course, they don't know the medication. So what I try to do is teach them the medications like the first day or give them a handout. Like these are the medications that we're giving as therapists so that you can know for yourself and be able to explain to the patient if they ask a question. So streamlining that process, I think, um, would help make a difference based on where the students are.
I agree with Patrivis. I also think as hospital based educators, helping or identifying those staff members that have a desire and a passion for education. Maybe those are the individuals that we place our students with versus oh, it's your turn today. And they don't have any desire to strengthen the student. They don't really care if they know medications. They're out there to get the work done, get the task done, check the list. They've done it. They've moved on. I think I'm learning that it is imperative that we identify those respiratory therapists that also have the desire to grow students, and hopefully that can help bridge the gap a little bit. They tend to be a lot more patient. They tend to take that extra time to teach the right way to do things. So I think that's one way we can kind of help bridge that gap. And then, of course, being knowledgeable about where they are in their curriculum. Because, Patricia, you're right. I don't know. I have students in all levels of the program, and I may not know exactly what this group of students, what they're comfortable with, and what another group may be comfortable with. So that is a way that we could definitely partner with the schools to kind of get an idea what the curriculum is, where they actually are, and what, to kind of help prepare that learning opportunity for them at the hospital level.
And I also would like to point out that in dealing with certain hospitals, am appreciative of the nursing model in terms of we have a cohort. So you have 2, 3 students with one person instead of burdening 3 therapists who have a full load, a full assignment trying to teach and do all these things. And that one person can take that time with the students or with the same person every time they go. They know exactly where their students are, what they know. And I just think that it has been, at least from the school side, a very positive experience when they have the right person in place. I have had some instances where it was a negative experience, but they did not have the right person in place. But I think it is something that I would love to see everybody move towards
Mhm.
instead of having, if we send 2 students to a hospital, just have those 2 students with the one therapist. I'd rather them both be with the one therapist that wants to teach them than throwing them with somebody who doesn't really care what they're learning, what they're doing.
Or that person could be like a clinical preceptor, that comes from the
Correct.
school or maybe works from the hospital, but are, designated for that. But I, I think it sounds good and it will give the same result. But having like a therapist that's designated for that, I don't think like a hospital would really budget for that.
Yeah, I
But
was about to do this. You talking
yeah,
money.
And
they're not, they're
that's
not
the
gonna
next
budget
question.
for
Since y'all opened
the
this,
school
and
got to
I have
pay
to
for
put
it. I'm sure they'll do it, but the
my
school got to pay for it.
Oh,
there you
But
go. I'm
having
putting my leadership
again,
hat
that
on,
like
right?
those preceptors really matter. They're very
They
mhm.
do.
impactful.
So now here's the question, right? Because and we've heard this all the time. What has changed in the healthcare system that makes this difficult? Because to me, everybody's trying to get to this ideal state, but when you do, and we have a supply and demand, the healthcare system say we need more therapists. School trying to push enough therapists, but we are having a lack of manpower to train these therapists. because at the end of the day, we also have a heavy workload. So, what is the ideal situation, or how, and when we were at the bedside, how has healthcare changed that makes education difficult from both student and you and RTs at the bedside?
I know workload is, I just remember when I was a student and comparing the same hospital now, we had protocols in place. It wasn't like 30 and 40 treatments that people were going out on the floors with, so they had the time to do the assessments and teach their students versus now that's like almost impossible. And aside from having the right person, when you put them with the wrong person, that even makes the situation 10 times worse. Because I can't tell you, and this is the God honest truth. In the last week, I think I've been told 3 or 4 times, gotten calls. Well, the therapist just yelled out, "Well, I don't want a student. I don't want this student with me today." They hear this, and then all learning goes out the window because now they don't feel welcome. They're not receptive to anything. So, um,
Difficult. I know.
Fortunate to actually have a model at our facility that fosters that type of training for students. And then when I was a student, it was the same model. I went into the hospital. There were about 4 of us from the school. We went to with one person who actually was a professor, they took us around, and our clinical rotations were actually with a professor. And so, fast forward to today, we have a very similar model where I have clinical instructors, and that is their sole responsibility is to take care of the students. And so they foster that relationship. The students have a one person to contact. If there are any issues, they escalate it immediately to myself or to the school. So it's been a great response because placing them with other therapists has just not worked out in the past.
okay.
And it doesn't take long. I mean, we know we're working in a shortage, but the last thing you want to do is not make a student feel welcome because the first thing they're going to
Mhm.
go back and do is tell their classmates.
They
And so
talk.
now you have another challenge of trying to attract good talent to your hospital. And that could be from a bad encounter that they had with a bedside staff member. So that it does exist. It can exist. I don't have to put the financial hat on, but for whatever reason, my facility makes it work where we have those dedicated people to be with our students. And I think
Yeah.
that has helped tremendously with our relationships with the school, with the students. And for the most part, it's worked out very well.
Yeah. I just, in terms of at least the program where I teach, we have a cohort of 60 students. There are 6 faculty members, 5 faculty, 6. I'm probably missing some. There's just no way for all of us to be at the bedside all the time with
Mhm.
every student to try to assist in connecting those pieces. And so we do have faculty that oversee and go out, and we do have
Mhm.
a specific faculty position where they have a cohort model, where just like what Jocelyn was saying, where they have 5 students that are with them. And we have been very successful. In the perfect world, I would like to hire 10 more people to do just that. But I think that it takes the burden away from, you know, just the regular therapist that's out there just trying to get their job done because they don't want to receive a nasty email or an incident report because they didn't get something done. And it allows for a positive experience for the students, which hopefully then they'll want to come back because that's what we're trying to do here is train them up so I can get them out to you guys. So
Yeah. So here's the question. What should respiratory school stop doing, start doing, or do differently to better serve students? What should respiratory school either stop doing because it's detrimental to student, start doing because we need to do better, or do differently to have a better approach for the student to be effective?
one thing that I know that I've started doing in the last couple years is speaking more about mental health counseling with the students because I've had, and this is something that I never thought I would have to deal with. students who have attempted suicide, who've talked about attempting suicide. And, you know, I have to take a step back and think, the world was different when I was a student versus when they were a student. Not just everything going on within the school, but the world itself. And so letting them know that there is support there for them and that they have somebody to talk to when they're going through something is something that I've started to incorporate in my lessons with them. I have something from someone from counseling services comes to talk to them about all the different resources available to them because they are our students, and I'm so thankful that a lot of them take them up on that. Um, and that's one thing I feel like we need to support, and we don't discuss that enough, is their mental health.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely remember that back then that was not a thing for us.
Stressful.
You just witness a death or something at the bedside, shake it off. We have more patients to see. We've never actually, and that's a good point. Thank you. What else? What they could need to stop doing or do differently?
I think one thing they could stop doing is understanding this. The conversations are great to talk about what happened then, now, and in the future. I think stop treating them like when we were in school.
Yep.
We cannot teach this group or this generation the way that we were taught because they're not going to receive. They won't receive it the way that we have. So definitely stop teaching that and start doing where they understand everyone's journey is different. Everyone doesn't have the financial support. They don't have car. Just understanding that everyone's journey is different. So I think that's what they could stop and start doing.
And that's okay. It's okay for it to be different.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I second and third that.
Okay.
Those are good points.
All right. Let's switch hat. We talk about the student. Now, education at bed. How do you all don't do that. Right. So now we going in. We took care of the student. We talk about the education model a little bit. How is education at bedside for the clinician? Because now we are having older clinicians who going back to stop and start doing. That's how we used to do it. That's how we used to practice. Intrinsic people, like we have clinicians that are so by the book from the 1990s. So how do you all
Like that was
educate?
so long ago. I'm sorry.
I just saw a reel the other day that like if you start with a 19, this is playing old school stuff. Like when my
Oh,
kids said,
Lord.
"Hey, Dad," back in the day, I was like, "Oh." But when you're filling
Back
out
in
an
the day.
application, you have to start scrolling for your year. I was like, "Yeah." So let's go
I was-
back to it, right? So definitely, what is the challenge for education at bedside for your clinicians? Because now we're having a spectrum of experiences. So what is the best way to keep your clinician engaged and educated?
That's a struggle. I
That word.
this day in 2026, I think as educators, we have to find a way to make education easier and accessible right in the moment. The days of the in-services and the lunch and learns and the come in for this class, those are challenges. And we don't get staff. They don't want to come in extra. And rightfully so. Work-life balance is a huge thing. And I totally respect that. But they don't want to come in extra. But how can we give real right time, right in the moment education to staff, like a handy resource, something that puts it right at their fingertips that they can do 10, 15 minutes with a little bit of downtime on their shift. That is the bigger challenge, and getting them to want to learn the information. A lot of therapists, they just want to, like I said, check the box, done. I'm done. So how do we transition how we teach the bedside staff to giving it to them right there, right at the moment, at your fingertips? It's an ongoing challenge, and it's a challenge.
Well, I want to say in terms of teaching, like equipment, I get, but when it's like policies and procedures changes, a lot of times just explaining the why behind that policy has changed can help them be more receptive to wanting to know and wanting to learn. Because I can't tell you, I still work at the bedside. I'm not saying this happens there, but something changes and they're just like, oh, this is how it's got to be. And everybody's like, what? It was just fine the way it was. Like, what? And then you get the griping and the grumbling, and everybody is, nobody's receptive at this point. So start with, well, we're doing this because, and then to me, my opinion only, that makes people more receptive to wanting to make that change.
So I agree with you both. And like Jocelyn said, people don't want to come in on a day off and things like that, or, have like an hour to sit down for an in service. So, just adapting to the generations and the way that they want to learn things, like from the staff, and you just got to be creative and give out the information in as many ways as possible. So having like say an education hub, having webinars that are pre-recorded, even having staff engaged where like you have super users and champions, I found that helps a lot because when we get a group of people who champion a certain thing and they learn it and then they can host many in services amongst their teams. I've seen that be very successful as well. Having QR codes on the equipment, just quick references that they can see, like how to do the quick setup. Um, Having infographics and different ways to get the information to them, having an education hub, like a little website that's just for our department that I developed where they're able to go to and get the information. I still present CEUs as far as like different things that may come out from vendors in our profession. And if they want to engage with that, then, they can. They know the CEUs they have to have, but it's not like a hard push like, "Hey, you have to do this." But when it comes to policies, procedures, different things like Larissa said, those non-negotiables, explaining the why, and then getting a buy-in from the champions, hosting a mini in-services, trying to do it when they're at work versus when they're off makes a difference. So I found
Question.
those things work.
Question for you all. Where is the thirst for knowledge? New grad, older generation, or a mixture of both? Or it depends on a person to person. Is it individual, or
Yes.
where do we see it?
It's definitely individual because you can't just discredit all the, new grads like, oh, they don't want to learn because there are some out there that are hungry. Um, I have a group right now that they're hungry. They want to learn. And then you have older therapists that have been doing this for a long time that want to learn, but then you have those that just want to this wave on out and they don't want to know anything new. They don't care. They're just clocking in, doing these treatments and going home. And then you have those young kids that just looking to make and get the biggest, sign on bonus. So I don't think that there's any one particular group of people or age group that wants to learn more than another.
I think having like a educator or the education team, excited about learning and presenting the information that, like how things are growing, having a clinical ladder in our department helps, because that gives them the financial, aspect of it. Like, hey, if I go and bridge over and get my bachelor's degree, or if I get this credential, different things like that. But I try to keep find creative ways to give information like peep this or did you know, different things and just presenting little tidbits of information and huddle or on a bullet, just keeping things exciting, basically. And
I
you'll be
agree,
surprised.
Chavis, about the leadership piece. And
Uh-huh,
having a leadership team that is big on education is
uh-huh,
huge because they set the standard, they set the example, and so everybody
Mm-hmm.
under them is going to
Mm-hmm.
want to be excited about education. And you go to those places where there's no talk of education, there's no talk of, advanced credentialing, there's no talk of anything, no, nothing. And it shows,
uh-huh.
it shows very stagnant.
Yeah.
All right. So we're getting close on time. I'm not going to hold you guys for too long, but I'm sitting with women and I'm going to have to address this. Women in leadership. You all are leaders. Give me one myth that you all are facing right now in your current role as educators, because you all are leaders, that you have to overcome that probably a male counterpart in leadership does not have to deal with?
I can tell you mine.
Go ahead.
It's
We'll
the
take
all the
turn.
hats that I'm juggling. I'm a single mother. I have 2 girls, that, I have to be present in their lives. I'm also working on my PhD. Oh, this light, I'm sorry, is, all
You're good.
over. And then, I'm the DCE of this program. I have 100 students under me. I'm like their mama too. It's just wearing all of those hats and try to do it with grace and not look like I'm, a zombie and being dragged, and try to keep a good attitude about it. And, I tell people all the time, just because, you know, you don't see me screaming and hollering doesn't mean the burden is not heavy. Um, just in the things, how I speak, my thoughts, my actions, I just have to be very, very careful. And it's exhausting. It's very exhausting. So,
I get it.
I have to agree with Larissa. I think a lot of our male counterparts, they don't have to juggle the hats. And I think people are more inclined to come and ask and just place more things on our plate. And I know where I sometimes miss the mark with saying no or not right now.
yeah,
I miss that mark a lot. I feel like I can figure it out. I can make it work.
yeah,
But in the meantime, I'm being pulled in 20 different directions, and I still have to be mindful of what I say, how I say it. And I don't think my male counterparts have to endure that type struggle. I am in a leadership position, and my team is very diverse
mhm,
regarding age, backgrounds. And so having to navigate how I have conversations with each of them is I don't know if my male counterpart would have that. I think we tend to want to finesse it this way for one person versus I can just come right at this other person. Whereas my male counterpart, the message is what the message is. And it
yep,
just, however it comes out, it's out there. So I
okay.
think that is something that it's a struggle for me, and I don't think my male counterparts have to deal with that.
I agree with you both. I mean, 100%. And just the part like like Jocelyn said, trying to monitor how I say it because it can come off as like because I'm a female, I'm emotional, or
Angry, aggressive.
yeah, all of the things.
Hmm.
And y'all, seriously, I was just standing in my kitchen this morning and I was thinking to myself as I'm like getting up, because I'm working on my MBA, my husband is school working on his doctorate. And so I'm like, okay, today's a study day and all the things after church. And he was able to get up and, relax a little bit. And I'm downstairs, like, we got laundry. I'm trying to fix breakfast, all of this. And I'm like, I have these other things to do to get ready for work, prepare for the week, get school work. But then because I'm a female, I'm the mom, I still got to, do the cooking and cleaning, all of those things. And I was just like, man, it's just so different for men. They don't have to carry as much,
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt with being a female.
Yep.
Um, so I kind of like nutted up just a little bit and
At least you're
it was
honest,
like, hold on, baby. It's okay. Is it the bacon? Like what? Let me fix you some orange juice. Just
Oh
sit down and
no.
relax. It's okay. He's like,
Mm.
I'll get you ready for the podcast. You want me to help you with your
Oh,
hair or
oh.
he iron my clothes and all of that. So I
Lord,
was
she
like,
done put
okay,
the
maybe
fear
I
of
just
God in
need
him this morning,
to
huh?
sit.
Well,
I
I
took him
can.
down through there just for being
Oh
a
Lord.
male.
He didn't even
So
know what would
that was
happen.
funny you said that. But yeah, at work, yeah, I agree with y'all. But it's all
I,
good now. It's
I
peace
can
in here.
relate. I can relate for sure because I've had the I don't know if it's a luxury or um 98% of my team they are women. So I don't know if
Mhm.
it's a luxury or if it's a training or and I'm talking to women, so I'll be very careful. But definitely it's different. And I see women in leadership as a leverage, as a because trust me, for me, even when I'm sending emails or something else, I send it to my filters. I have some ladies on my team. I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. Am I gonna say it right? So you all have innate roles and some abilities to see things, but at times it could be taken for granted, or at least also the weaker part, the weaker sex in the conversation, which is sad. But if you look at it, there is a massive transition. A lot of leaders are now women, and I have no problem to give you all flowers and kudos and respect as it is. So I don't see women in leadership as anything different. But that's why I wanted to ask, because educators for me all are leaders. And I'm doing the Lord's work for sure. But I wanted to make sure how does it feel for women in leadership? And on my podcast, anytime I have ladies or women on on this channel, I need to know because we have different lenses and how we see things. A six could be a nine, a nine could be a six. And I think we need to come together and get to it. So let's close out with some fun facts and some lightning rounds.
Lord.
Morning or afternoon or evening person?
Morning.
Morning.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Tea.
Okay. If you were not a respiratory therapist, what would be your ideal job?
Stay at home, Larissa.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't
I
know.
know that's right.
A background singer for Beyonce.
Oh, okay.
Patricia.
I learned something new.
It's extreme. I would either be in the law field or a rapper.
Oh, okay. Come on,
What's your
show us what
rapper
you got,
name?
Travis. What's
What
your
be
rap
your
name?
rapper name?
Treat
What?
me easy for she's and please believe it.
Keep your daytime job. If there was one advice you would give to the student, what would it be?
It's funny. I tried to give this advice to my stepson. Join the ROTC and go into the military fresh out of school because you'll be retired in 25 years.
No. Okay.
How do I block you?
That's fair.
Well,
I need to learn the block
You got a
Oh,
good
Lord.
point.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, I would say never give up and ask for help. When you're struggling, you got to be able to communicate that to somebody because there are people out there who will help you.
Yeah.
Good.
Mine would be to never stop learning.
That's good.
Never stop learning.
Well, ladies, we're supposed to be there for 30, 40 minutes. It's been close to an hour. So I thank you all for doing the Lord's work. God knows I'm married to my wife is an educator. My mom is a long-time educator. She's still teaching. So I understand for you to be a teacher, no matter what field, y'all doing the Lord's work because I can't do it. And definitely I welcome you, and I'm happy that you all came on this first session of this podcast.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping me launching this. And that was a great conversation. So till next time, thank you for being on HR the Leader podcast. Then, now, and tomorrow, respiratory education platform where we actually talk about the student portion of it and the clinician. I wish you all have a great day, a great evening, and I'll see you all around. Thank you very much.
Stay
Thank
warm,
you.
y'all.
Bye.